All right, now come on. I mean, how cool is that? So of course I'm going to get into how this vise can clamp at an angle and how you can make your twin turbo vise do that. But first let's talk about this handle accessory. Now if you haven't seen it in this video, the first one released by someone other than me on the twin turbo vise, Kevin from KRT Wood built a sort of wooden version of this and made a very strong push that he thought an accessory like this would be good for people that don't prefer what I'd say is a more traditional handle and like a wheeled option. I was a little skeptical at first because I wasn't sure if you lose half your torque arm when you do this, and you also lose 3/4 of your mechanical advantage when you go into high speed. I wasn't sure I could get the friction low enough that this would be a workable solution, but that's high speed. I mean, you can move it with your pinky. This is definitely a workable option and speeds the vise up even more. So I think this is a good accessory, and I think it makes sense for a lot of people, especially if you like the hand wheel kind of solution. And it's nice because it works with the existing handle. It's got a little detent, so if you want the extra torque arm for whatever reason, you want to make it a traditional handle, you can make it a traditional handle and then pop it right back into the hand wheel new style if you want it that way. So pretty versatile. This is compatible with all the vices, and there's a link in the description to purchase it for pre-sale. I talk more about that at the end of the video. Alright, now let's talk about the pivot. This is what is happening underneath the bench to allow it to do what you saw at the beginning. And I went with this design because it did the three things I wanted a pivot mount to do. First off, it's very smooth and doesn't jam. It doesn't obstruct the center of a split top bench, which was very important functionality that I wanted to meet. And it's also one product that's configurable to any of the size vices that I sell. And in case you find this interesting, I'm going to take you through a little bit of how this design meets those criteria. So I start off by drawing a circular arc and two radius lines from the center out to the arc, and then I pencil in their midpoints. Next, I have two rotating bars that are anchored on one side at the midpoint of the radial line, and at the other side they're anchored on a traveling plate right above the intersection of the radial line and the arc. And you can see once I've done this that the traveling plate is constrained to only one specific arc that it can travel on. Its travel is constrained, and this principle is what keeps the pivot mount for the vise from jamming. That traveling plate is what's representing the piece that holds the nut and bushing for the vise. So if it can only move in one arc, then you don't end up with jamming issues. And you can see that for a sizable portion of that arc, it is very closely mimicking that circular arc that we started with. And as it happens, the angle associated with the point where those two arcs start to pull away from each other is almost exactly the same as the wedge-shaped piece of wood that I used to demonstrate the functionality. So the vise can't go much beyond this angle because you really want the arc that the two pivots are rotating around to be pretty close to that circular mount to get them to work right. And that maximum angle is about 6 degrees. Now it can actually go out a little bit past that point and still function okay. There's enough tolerance built into the system that it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. So here I have the vise set. Oh, I haven't measured it, but it's probably about 7 or 8 degrees total, so a few degrees more than that wedge-shaped piece of wood. And it still functions okay. You might notice that it's not running quite as smoothly, but I'm still able to move it in and out just fine with the hand wheel and in high speed. So it can go past this 6 degrees a bit. Okay, so that principle gave us, and I say us because I had some design and conceptualization help on this, all that we needed to make something that could function like a center pivot but still leave the center gap open for a split top bench. Okay, I'm editing this and realizing that I need to clarify something. The gap for a split top bench is only going to be open for the 24-inch and the 20-inch vise. For the 14, you're spacing these two plates so close together that you'd close up the gap. Now for the 14-inch, it's not as frequently used as an end vise, so just the best I could do on that one. And be configurable for all the different sizes of the vices, because we just need to find out a geometry where we could change the spacing of these two sides and have multiple anchor points for the pivot bar things so that they could be set up for any vise, and that's what this is. So the people that pre-order this will receive detailed written instructions this time, not just a video that you have to keep pausing and rewinding, to set up the pivot mounts for exactly which vise you have and get them placed on your bench and make it a little simpler. I'm going to try to get there for the vices and the pencil tool too, and just have written instructions for all my products. I know that's something people want and would be more convenient than videos, so I'll get there. So I know a lot of you are probably curious about the dimensional change to a wood jaw if you already have a vise and you've already built the wood jaw and it's already incorporated into your workbench. So the swivel mount does add 5/8 of an inch of height, so you could either recess the mounts into your bench somehow, or you could add that height on the top of the wood jaw you already made. Now that's actually what I'm opting to do here. I just glue that piece on and flush it up. It's a pretty simple thing to do, and depending on your particular setup, one or the other solution might be right for you. But just be aware that you're going to have to deal with that if you've already built the jaw for the vise. Alright, just one last point before wrapping it up. In case you're concerned, the pivot mount does not prevent the vise from being non-racking when you have the two pivot plates tightened down well. So you can see I'm clamping on just one side of the vise, and the opposite side pulls forward only a very small amount, maybe a 1/16 of an inch. I think this is as good as you can expect from any vise, and I think qualifies as non-racking. So there you go. Alright, thanks for watching. Now both the handle edition and the swivel mount work with any of the sizes of the twin turbo vise, the 14, the 20, and the 24. And the first batch that I produced for Kickstarter on through the ones that I'm selling right now, it's compatible. Both of them are compatible with all of those. And if you want to check those out, there's a link in the description for the website page where I'm selling them. It is a pre-sale right now, 3-month lead time, so I should have them in your hands by the end of May. Now my track record has not been perfect on actually delivering on the exact time when I say I'm going to, but I haven't been more than a couple months late, so I really think I can get them to you in May. And I'd like to correct that track record of not quite meeting the deadlines that I give you guys. Now one last thing, you may have noticed that these gears look a little bit shinier than the ones that you've seen previously on the twin turbo vices. All the vices that I'm going to make going forward, and even the batch 2 and 3 vices that people have yet to receive, are going to be electroplated. Now this is mostly an aesthetic thing. I think it looks better. They do have a very minor friction advantage, but it's pretty small. Not that big a deal. I mean, every bit helps, but mostly it's for looks. With the previous gears, I did have quite a few that looked like this. They were just too tarnished and rusty to be, something that I'd want to send to you guys. So I think this is going to look better on all the gears and hopefully reduce the number of ones that I have to reject for this kind of tarnishing. So that's the idea there. If you haven't purchased a twin turbo vise, I also have the link for the vices down in the description. At this point you'll be in batch 4. You'll definitely have the electroplated gears. It should look exactly like the one that you're seeing right here. I don't plan on tweaking the design or changing manufacturers again, which I had to for some quality issues. So everything should be set and settled, and I think I've got this figured out. So check all that stuff out. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time.